skin. And both the trade of enslaved people and the high demand products they produced, like sugar and tobacco, went to enriching Britain, strengthening its empire, and by extension, filling royal coffers. And I do get that people shouldn't be held personally responsible for whatever their ancestors did, but trying to talk about the British role in the slave trade without talking about the monarchy, it's sort of like trying to talk about Jeffrey Epstein without talking about the monarchy. They are inextricably linked. However uncomfortable they might find that fact. Yet despite all of that, no one in the royal family has ever apologised on behalf of the crown. Instead, they've tiptoed around culpability with passive voice statements like Prince William saying slavery was abhorrent, or Prince Charles going to Ghana and saying this.
The appalling atrocity of the slave trade and the unimaginable suffering caused left an indelible stain on the history of our world. While Britain can be proud that it later led the way in the abolition of this shameful trade, we have shared a responsibility. We have a shared responsibility to ensure that the abject horror of slavery is never forgotten.
But listen to that. He can't even mention how awful the slave trade was without, in the same breath, mentioning that Britain led the way in abolishing it. British people love to talk about their role in abolition. But Charles left out a lot there, including that while, yes, the British did abolish the slave trade in 1807, it allowed plantation slavery to persist in colonies for decades after, meaning full abolition didn't follow for another generation. But the larger point here is, you can't have it both ways. You don't get to take the credit for abolition without taking the blame for what led up to it. If someone intentionally set fire to a Quiznos, then hours later put that fire out, they wouldn't get to post a picture of themselves holding a hose with the caption, "So, I did a thing." That's not the full story, is it? Also, for what it's worth, the effect of slavery clearly isn't just in the past. The UK was paying for it in a very literal sense incredibly recently. Because when Britain finally abolished slavery in its colonies in the 1830s, it took out a loan of £20 million, but not to compensate enslaved people. Instead, it went to enslavers who wanted compensation for the loss of income from their properties, which, to be clear, meant people. That is about £17 billion in today's money, and up until 2015, the British state was still paying off the debt. Amazingly, many learned about this for the first time when a few years ago the British Treasury tweeted, "Here's today's surprising #Friday fact. Millions of you helped end the slave trade through your taxes." And I'm sorry, but that is just not a good Friday fact. The average person farts between 10 to 20 times per day. That is pretty good. Fish can cough. Now we're talking. Surprise, I know times are tough, but you just helped pay off the families of dead enslavers. No, absolutely fucking not. Save that shit for Monday, you buzzkill. And for anyone thinking, well, that didn't happen on the watch of the modern monarchy, it is worth knowing one of the most brutal atrocities carried out by the British actually happened in the first 8 years of Elizabeth's reign, and when Charles was alive. Because in the 1950s, while Kenya was still a British colony, an armed rebellion was launched by the Kikuyu people, who had lost land to white settlers and found themselves locked into a formal racial hierarchy that placed Europeans on top and Africans at the bottom. The British sent army reinforcements to put down the so-called Mau Mau uprising, describing the situation to the world back then like this.
Agitators urged some of the Africans to free their country of the white man. There is little reliable information about the setup of the terrorist organization, for few members even know from whom they take their orders. They obey blindly, savagely attacking the defenseless, burning, looting, murdering. Kenya is the battlefield of a conflict that cannot end until the Mau Mau is dissolved forever.
Righty-ho, the trouble in Kenya comes not from the British who took over and stole land, but from the people whose land was stolen. Now, is there more to this story? Surely, but will you hear it coming from a voice that sounds like this? I say never! Never, I say! In crushing the uprising, the British instituted a system of detention camps, and 90,000 Kenyans were executed, tortured, or maimed during the crackdown, and an estimated 160,000 were detained in appalling conditions. For a long time, the British made outcry over this with a mixture of denial and defensiveness. In fact, just watch this interview with a former British colonial officer who'd been responsible for at least 6 of those detention camps. When asked about reports that soldiers had put their boots on the necks of detainees, he has an escalating exchange culminating in the single longest pause you will ever see on television. I'll warn you, however long you think this pause yours is going to be. It's going to be much longer.
Did you have cause to give the order to yourself put your boot on their neck? On these resistors, the ones that were howling?
Can we stop talking for a moment?
No, because I'd quite like to answer that.
I will answer it when I have stopped talking. I'm sorry, but
Well, do you have a problem with that question?
no, it's a hypothetical question.
No, it's not. It's a very precise
You
question.
asked me, did I put my foot on anybody's neck? No.
Did you cause the order to be given? Did you give the order to do that?